Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. Good to be together. Good to come apart from our routines and be reminded of the joy and the goodness of life despite all the world's problems. It's a beautiful place. Despite our struggles, it's a wonderful opportunity to be alive, to love and be loved. We're going to start with an old bluegrass song, and we don't have the, I don't see what's going on here, so let's... Old bluegrass song that has its own way of talking about the miracle of eternity. Even the scientists have figured out that matter's always changing in form, but it's not created, it's not destroyed. Change is a constant, but that change speaks of what doesn't change: eternity. Limitless time and space. And so Amanda's going to help us, and we've got the words if you want to sing along. It's called Uncloudy Day.
Tell me of a home far beyond the sky, and they tell me of a home far away, and they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day. Oh, the land of a cloudless day. Oh, the land of an uncloudy sky. Oh, they tell me of a place where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day. Oh, they tell me of a home where my friends are gone. Oh, they tell me of a home far away, where the tree of life in eternal bloom shed its fragrance through an uncloudy day. Oh, the land of a cloudless day. Oh, the land of an uncloudy sky. Oh, they tell me of a place where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day. Oh, they tell me that his smile's on his children there. Oh, his smile drives their sorrow all away. And they tell me that no tears ever come again in that land of an uncloudy day.
It's all together now.
Oh, the land of a cloudless day. Oh, the land of an uncloudy sky. Oh, they tell me of a place where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day.
All right, now your time to sing. Let's all stand. So if you're a newcomer here, welcome. We want you to know that we think love's the only way. Jesus is our way. And as Christians, we love to focus on him and get excited by his values, his stories, and his presence. So let's sing together. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away.
Bop shua, bop shua. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away. Bop shua, bop shua. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away.
Bop shua, bop shua.
Jesus is the light that shines its rays on me.
Bop shua, bop shua.
Jesus is the light that shines its rays on me.
Bop shua, bop shua.
Jesus is the light that shines its rays on me.
Bop shua, bop shua.
Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away. Bop shua, bop shua. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away. Bop
continue this following the service. All who are thirsty, also all who are thirsty, all who are weak, come to the fountain, dip your heart in the stream of life, let the pain and the sorrow be washed away in the waves of His mercy, as deep cries out to deep, we sing, come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Come, Lord Jesus, come. So, when we come to worship, it's not like a concert, because worship is the invitation for engagement. The fancy word for worship is liturgy, which means the work of the people. And the work, the great work, the really resting work we get to do today is to move into deeper awareness of some things. So, what is it you're thirsty for this morning? Some of us are thirsty for greater human rights and kindness to the environment. We come to be encouraged and to gain hope so that we don't get discouraged and lose hope. Some of us are thirsty for some inner rest, for some peace. Some of us are thirsty for strength to face some big struggles and problems we're dealing with. Some of us come thirsty for a greater vision of what we can be about in our life that will bring us more meaning. So what are you thirsty for? You have to name it before you can claim it. And naming what we're thirsty for and opening ourselves to the Spirit of the universe to touch us, we become participants in this worship. All who are thirsty, all who are weak, come to the fountain, dip your heart in the stream of life, let the pain and the sorrow be washed away in the waves of His mercy, as He cries out to Thee. We sing, Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. Holy Spirit, come. Amen. God be with you. And also with you. Lift up your hearts. We lift them up to the Holy One. Let us give thanks to God. It is right to give God thanks and praise. Our scripture verse from Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, all together. Do not be deceived. God's principles cannot be laughed away, for you reap whatever you sow. And our opening hymn is Praise the Lord with the sound of trumpets. beyond our words, beyond our abilities to define, and yet here we are in this amazing universe. Here we are on this precious planet Earth with its life, with the opportunities it affords. We come to realize that we're not individuals, that we are codependent, interdependent with you, with all of creation. Every day, the universe, the earth sustains us. Every day, the sun keeps us alive. Every day, we're fed by your hand. And so we come to grasp that we're in this together. We're not alone. To be encouraged and to take our place in the circle of life, that we may every day in every way be a part of your healing stream of goodness. We ask these mercies in the Spirit of Jesus, who when he was on earth taught us to pray to you as our mother and as our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. So, some of you are asking what this is. I'll explain later. I got to keep you in suspense so that I can keep your attention, you see. Any birthdays? Anybody? Yes?
Marie, today.
Well, Marie, happy birthday! Thank you for letting us celebrate that you were born. We're glad you're here. Anybody else with a birthday? Yes. What's that? Oh, your daughter's birthday too? And retired. Very cool. Yes, Marie.
My brother-in-law is going to be 50 on Tuesday.
Wow.
It's
Yeah, there you go. Nancy.
It's our 45th anniversary.
Oh, wonderful. Any other anniversaries? Yeah.
My daughter celebrated her 11th anniversary.
Oh, nice. Well, we got to sing happy birthday for Marie.
Yes.
Absolutely. So here we go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Marie. Happy birthday to you.
Any blessings anyone wants to share? Any prayer requests?
I request my good friend, who's hopefully she gets better.
All right, yeah. Yes.
There was a barbecue at Harris Park last week in Franklin Street.
Nice.
It was awesome. That was like that.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Good stuff. Yeah. For Catherine.
Mom and then Nona and wherever she's pretty special person.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
I have a prayer request for my daughter-in-law's dad. He was on Thursday, I think it was, he was just randomly beaten outside of his house.
Oh, goodness.
And, yeah, so he's out of the hospital now, but he's running days.
Yeah, for sure. Joanne. Yeah, absolutely. Any others in our community? Yep.
Got me the hand on Saturday morning, guys, for September.
Hospitality meal.
So you see Beth afterwards from 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and she taught her so she knows when she's got
Wonderful. Absolutely. And you know what? Just working with Beth is a treat. Just being around Beth is a treat. She's one of those people. And Okay, so anyway, we need sign-ups to help out with the Wonder Cafe, you know, the drinks and that sort of thing. There's a budget to buy, snacks if you don't want to make them. There's somebody who can, if you haven't done it before, to do it with you and help you and that sort of thing. So you're not going to be stranded in an exciting task. But the more people we can do it, then we only have to do it about 2 times a year or something like that. So there's a sheet in the back, and if that's something you might be willing to, and if you're new at it, just put new, need help. And then Nancy will see that you're well taken care of. All right, thank you for that. And now we're going to move into our time of offering. We celebrate what our community is about. This past week, we had a good group of children here enjoying summer camp and learning that love is always enough and will get us where we need to go and having a good time while they're doing it. And our children programming costs about $5,000 a year, and so that's a part of what we give our gifts for. And it's a wonderful thing to have a place where children can hear the values where they're raised at home of kindness, respect, and fairness in an inclusive way that celebrates that all people, whatever their religion, whatever their identities, if they are kind and respectful and fair, that's all that matters. And what a great way to raise our children. And as the offering is received, you're probably singing something, Amanda. Oh, here it
Let's
is.
sing it together.
Spirit, open my heart.
We'll sing it.
And the words are here too, in case you want to sing along.
Spirit, open my heart to the joy and pain of living. As you love me, I love in receiving and in giving. Spirit, open my heart. God, replace my stony heart with a heart that's kind and tender. Oh, my goodness and fear, to your grace I now surrender. Spirit, open my heart to the joy and pain of living. As you love me, I love in receiving and in giving. Spirit, open my heart. Write your love upon my heart as my love, my goal, my story. In each thought, word, and deed, may my living bring you glory. Spirit, open my heart to the joy and pain of living. As you love me, I love in receiving and in giving. Spirit, open my heart. May I weep with those who weep, share the joy of sister, brother, in the welcome of Christ. May we welcome one another. Spirit, open my heart to the joy and pain of living. As you love me, I love in receiving and in giving. Spirit, open my heart.
Thanks, Amanda. Let's stand and sing together our offertory prayer as we offer our lives each day along with these gifts of money. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I say? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. What can I do? What can
What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share.
All right. The people of God said, Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Our scripture reading is from the Gospel of Mark. The Pharisees, along with other religious scholars who had came from Jerusalem, gathered around Jesus. They noticed that some of his disciples were not observing the ritual washings before meals. The Pharisees and Jews in general would never eat a meal without going through motions of ritual hand washing with prayers, and an especially vigorous rubbing if they'd just come from the market, to say nothing of the scourings that give to jugs and pots and pans. The Pharisees and religious scholars asked, why do your disciples flout these sacred rules, showing up at meals without washing their hands properly? Jesus answered, Isaiah was right about frauds like you. He hit the bullseye when he said, these people make a big show of saying the right thing, but their heart isn't in it. They act like they are worshiping me, but they don't mean it. They just use the rules as a cover for whatever teaching suits their fancy, ditching God's desire and taking up the latest fads. Jesus called the crowd together and said, listen now, all of you, take this to heart. It's not what we swallow that pollutes our life. It's what comes out of our hearts that can be the real pollution. When he went back home after being with the crowd, his disciples said, this is something every preacher's a little scared of. Heard your sermon, didn't understand it. What were you saying? Put it in plain language. Jesus said, how do you not understand? That's what preachers want to do. Don't you see that what you swallow can't contaminate you? It's what comes out of a person that pollutes. Thefts, murders, greed, deceptive dealings, meanness, slander, and arrogance. All these come from the heart. This is the source of the problem. So may we gain wisdom for our journey from these words of Scripture. All right, now, come on down here. It's more fun having you up here. There we go. Did you get to the summer camp last week at all? Did you have a good time? Cool. Now, do you guys know what these are? Oh, slide. Do you guys know what those are? What are they? What are they? Crayons, yes. Now, did you use those last week at all? Yeah, maybe. When are you guys going to get to use these soon? You going back to school? What grade you going to be in? Woohoo, you're getting old. All right. And you guys will be, is she going into junior? Senior kindergarten. Wow. So you'll be using crayons like that too, won't you? Yes, exactly. And what Jesus points out is that when we're doing different things, it's sometimes exciting and we can get nervous. But he said that if we will have good hearts and do our best and be kind, that everything will work out. And, you know, when it comes to school, there's some subjects we're better in than others. When it comes to life, there's some things we're better at than others. And I'm probably going to tell you something you may not hear at school, but if you do your best, like if you study hard and you do your best and you don't do very well, it doesn't matter at all. As long as you do your best and you're kind, your life is going to work out great. And so we don't have to feel pressured that we have to get a certain mark or we have to do well at this. If we really try and we're kind, we're going to have a great life. And that's something I want us to feel secure about. And it's the same for adults. If we try a project and it's a mess, it doesn't matter. If we try hard and we have kind relationships and are fair and respectful, our life's going to work out. If we get brilliant marks and we execute plans perfectly and we're not kind, it's not going to work out. That's the deal. So let's just sing our chorus again. Jesus is the rock, and he rolls my blues away. And then our children can go to their special Sunday camp. All right, let's sing them out. Jesus is the rock, he rolls my blues away.
Bop shoo-ah, bop shoo-ah.
Jesus is the rock, and he rolls my blues away.
Bop shoo-ah, bop shoo-ah.
Jesus is the rock, and he rolls my blues away.
Bop shoo-ah, bop shoo-ah.
Jesus is the one that my side
grace
set
on me.
on. Bop shoo-ah,
Bop
bop
shoo-ah. Jesus is the one that
my
my
side
side
is
is set on.
Bop shoo-ah, bop shoo-ah.
Jesus is the one that my side is set on.
Bop shoo-ah,
Bop shoo-ah.
Jesus is the rock, and he
Rolls my blues away.
Bop
Shoo-ah, bop shoo-ah. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away.
Bop shoo-ah,
Bop shoo-ah. Jesus is the rock and he rolls my blues away. Bop shoo-ah.
All right. And blessings to our children and to their leaders. Guess it's time to preach, isn't it? Nothing new about that. Keeps things exciting. Please pray with me. Spirit of wisdom, minister to us, your people. The only truth be spoken, the only truth be heard, we ask. Amen. Well, I've been thinking about change this week. Fall's a coming. You can feel the change in the weather. I'm not in my shorts today. And when I talked to kids, I was talking to some kids at a wedding yesterday afternoon, and they were all excited about going to school and nervous. I remember all that. I was especially nervous too because I was an introvert. I was a shy kid. Maybe hard for you to imagine, but I was, man, oh man. You know, change can come so fast too. Last Sunday, our cat Boo was doing her thing, and she is a great cat, and we had to put her down Thursday night. Our children have never known life without Boo. She's a cat that just came to us. I didn't want to have to go through saying goodbye to her someday because I'd just gone through saying goodbye to TC, the cat, my previous cat. So she'd come into our yard and I'd gently throw her over the fence, you know. But she kept coming back. And she was an amazing cat. She was an indoor-outdoor cat, had her claws. She would regularly bring us mice and little bunnies. And while I wasn't too thrilled about that, it was the thought that counted. But you know, Siobhan, really up until Siobhan went to Newfoundland, she was Siobhan's cat. All she paid attention to was Siobhan. Because when Siobhan, like the cat came on the scene when Siobhan was probably 2. I mean, Siobhan used to pull the cat by the tail to get it to come out. And the cat never scratched her. I don't understand it. I mean, we wouldn't have been mad at the cat if she had, right? And the other thing Siobhan would do when she was a little kid is she'd pick the cat up by her stomach. And so her head would be flopping over here. We'd say, Siobhan, don't do that, right? But the cat, we always said that Siobhan was in a codependent relationship with the cat. But the cat would always sleep in Siobhan's room. But when Siobhan went away to Memorial 2 years ago, the cat discovered the rest of us. And so we were all close to her. But our cat had a thing about skunks. She just loved mixing it up with skunks. And a year ago, I think I told you how she mixed it up a few times in the week. And then she was in kind of bad shape, and she got a cut. And we weren't sure how that was going to work out. But then she got her mojo back, and everything was fine. But she got into it with a skunk again. And Thursday, she was just lethargic and could hardly breathe. We took her to the vet, and she had a heart murmur. And the vet said, this is not going to end well. And so we put her down, and then had a funeral Friday morning. And the thing that Jesus is talking about applies to every aspect of life, because what he's saying is that while we all need some rules and regulations, the only thing that really matters in our life is the matter of the heart. The heart of every matter is the matter of the heart. And I just reflect on how Boo's presence, has blessed us as a family. And at that funeral, Jackson and Siobhan, they love each other dearly, but they're oil and water. And they're kind of at each other, and they have to work at kind of being civil and nice to each other. And they're getting better, but it didn't come easily. But there we were at the funeral, and the two of them were holding hands. I don't think I've ever seen them hold hands before. But it shows, how love from an animal shared among people, it always makes the difference. The thing that matters is the matter of the heart. And so, our kids going back to school, I hope we'll give our kids and our grandkids that message. Doesn't matter what their marks are. It doesn't, but it matters that they try hard. If they don't try hard, they can't be blessed. And it matters that they learn how to live lives, heartful lives of kindness, respect, and fairness. And the deal is, if they do, they can have a great life, even if they're no good at school. And we give our kids so many messages that you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to be this way, that way, or the other, or you're not going to have a good life, right? It's cruel. We need to let our kids chill and say, look, try hard. Keep trying hard. Life requires you to show up and give it your best. But if your best isn't up to other people's standards, as long as you're kind, God will take care of the rest. And He'll bless you with a great life. And that's true about so many of the changes. Young person over at Mount Zion announced he's engaged. And the fellow who got married yesterday, his dad said to me, he says, David is just smitten with this gal. And I just love that. Isn't it great to be smitten? I love to be smitten by love. And, but to keep the relationship going, we got to remember, it's about the heart. Because we can go into our roles and thinking, well, I'm a provider, and I do this, and I do that, and I do the other thing. But it's like Paul said, you don't get the love. The heart's not beaten. It's not going to work. It's not going to be a pretty sight. And so that's what Jesus is talking about today. That the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. That it's values that make our lives meaningful and get us where we need to go, like integrity, appropriate honesty and kindness and respect and fairness and faith and hope and love. And there's the unwanted changes. It's the little things that drive me crazy. My family will tell you this. I'm really great in the big, tough things, but the little things. And one of the things is it just drives me crazy and just tempts me, and sometimes I lose my Christianity over software upgrades. Yeah, seriously. I got to do something, right? It's got to happen now. I got to talk to somebody about something, a funeral or something. I need to know about them. I go to my computer, software update, come back in half an hour, right? And being old now, when I was young, I was into tech. I was one of those groovy kids that I had those Commodore computers from Radio Shack just doing all kinds of neat stuff. You're old when you hate that change, right? But again, you got to go back to the heart. I'm not going to be able to learn those software updates And I'm going to have to keep pestering Eric if I don't move out of that anger, anxiety mode, right? And go into acceptance and say, okay, let's get the wisdom thing going here. Let's work at this. Yeah, now we laugh, but those little things can drive us crazy. And then when they're driving us crazy, they're driving the people around us crazy too, right? And what we need to realize is that when change comes, whether it's good or bad change, I mean, I almost read that thing again about luck and unlucky. We never know, whether something's coming is really going to be good or bad. But what the spiritual journey tells us is it's our response to change that determines ultimately whether it's a gift or not. It's our response, because the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart, not the circumstances. Oh, we're all about the circumstances. It's about the response to the circumstances. So Jesus is criticizing his disciples because they didn't do a full ritual washing before they ate. And I mean, wow, this story just sums up the problem with religion, doesn't it? Every religion out there, they've got their rules and they've got their regulations and they've got their doctrines. And when you get focused on that as the primary thing, rather than that as a way to being kinder, you lose the whole thing. And so, the leaders were telling Jesus and his disciples, you're unclean, verboten, you're bad. And in Christianity, it's lost. You're lost. You don't say the sinner's prayer. You don't believe this. You don't believe. You're lost. You're lost. The reality is we're all a bit lost and we're all a bit found. And that it's not about the rules in and of themselves. Rules at their best are just ways of helping us be kind, respectful, and fair. And what I love is that Jesus was kind of a libertarian. But he was a special kind of libertarian. Libertarians will say you can do anything you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Jesus said you can do anything you want as long as it helps somebody. As long as it helps yourself, others, helps the planet Earth. And the golden rule, right? All the religions and cultures of the world have a version of the golden rule. But they almost all have the negative version, which is if you would not do something to somebody else, if there's something you wouldn't do, that you don't want somebody doing to you, don't do it to somebody else. Don't do anything to somebody else you wouldn't want somebody doing to you. But Jesus takes it the other step, right? He says, do to other people what you'd like done to you. Jesus was always about the doing. And Paul backed that up too with some beautiful verses. He said, whatsoever is kind, whatsoever is beautiful, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is just, whatsoever is fair, think on these things. And in another passage he says, if there's anything kind and loving and fair, against such there can be no law. So if there's something you can do that's helpful to somebody and somebody's got a problem with it, it's their problem, not yours. That's the freedom. The early church in the first 400 years grew because it was a religion of freedom. We are free to do anything that's kind and good and helpful. And against such, there can be no laws. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, when I grew up with the old-time religion, and I grew up in a cult. I mean, everything was wrong. And when everything's wrong, in a weird way, everything's right. It's moral anarchy. You say, what are you talking about? Well, if you're going to get strapped for going to a movie, and you're going to get strapped for stealing, you may as well steal and go to the movie, because you're going to get strapped anyway, right? It's moral anarchy. And thankfully, I had a brother and sisters that were 10, 15 years older than me. They helped me develop somewhat of a real moral compass because I didn't learn it from the church. Everything was wrong. And if everything's wrong, well, heck, you may do anything. That's why people from fundamentalist religions, like in Canada, evangelicals and Roman Catholics have more children out of wedlock than the Protestants and even non-church people. Because when you tell kids they can't have sex, you can't have sex, you can't have sex, and you don't prepare them for responsible sex, what do? They have sex, right? Because if everything's wrong, nothing's wrong. That's the reality. So Jesus is saying, look, it's not about rules in and of themselves. It's the heart of the matter that counts. It's the heart. It's the heart. And we're given good hearts by God. But, the rules, The rules are so seductive because you can say, oh, I obey the rules and therefore I'm a good moral person. But it doesn't work out that way. I mean, drinking and smoking weed. I mean, if you can drink and smoke weed and it doesn't diminish your best self, go ahead, drink and smoke weed. But if you're drinking, smoke weed or gambling or whatever you're doing and it's diminishing your best self, then you need to recover your heart and stop doing it and make a change. Where I think this really works its way is in marriages and covenanted relationships. There are people who have vowed to be loving to one another. And they're living their lives being mean and cold and nasty and cutting with one another. But since they're not sleeping around, they think they're morally fine. What they don't realize is they're adulterers. Because adultery is not about who you sleep with. Newsflash, in the Bible, most of the men had more than one wife. And it wasn't adultery. So adultery is not about who you sleep with. Adultery is breaking your covenant. And if you've covenanted together to live in kindness and respect and love, and you're not doing it, be honest. Be honest. There's a problem there. There's nothing good happening there. And we can justify it because we think of all the good things we do and how our partners don't do the good things, and so we're justified in being mean and nasty. No, you're an adulterer. The heart of the problem is broken. On the other hand, my wife's a sex therapist. She tells me about couples who have a great relationship and they include somebody else in their sexuality in a thoughtful way that's part of the marriage covenant. It's fine. So you see, we're all suckered in to looking at just these little laws. And what we're called to as spiritual people is to discern the matters of the heart. Because the heart of the matter is always the matter of the heart. Sometimes it takes some time for needed changes. I did a lot of talking with people at this wedding yesterday. The grandmother of the bride, she told me a story that a big change had happened the week before in her. She had always been very angry at the woman who married her brother. He was a bit disabled. He drove a taxi faithfully. Before he got married, he was always a very happy, positive person, and he became a very quiet, sad person over their 20 years of marriage. And she just harped at him, and everything he did was never good enough. And so she was very angry, and she couldn't let go of this blockage and couldn't forgive her. And she hadn't seen her brother died, and she hadn't seen this woman for about 15 years. And they stumbled over each other, and something in the grandmother's heart just said, let's have a coffee. And much to her amazement, she discovered that this other woman was very different than she'd remembered her. And they really connected. And she said, that blockage is gone. Her heart got fixed. Forgiveness and reconciliation was able to happen. And now they're looking forward to getting together again. You see, you just never know what Spirit can do. But there is a time and a season. And sometimes we have to wait for that time and season. Of course, the final change that we all face is death. And I'm wearing this because I went to an end-of-life procedure with Shirley Fiddick. She's connected to Mount Zion and was a member at Wellington Street United for a long time. And she has a brain cancer that was not treatable. And because of the new laws in Canada, she was able to choose yesterday as her day of death. And so there she was with all her faculties, relaxed, peaceful, surrounded by all her family and close friends because they knew the date and they could travel from wherever they were in the world and come there together to give thanks for her life and to be with her as she passes to heaven. And she had told us that we were all to wear these leis because she wanted to note that amidst the sadness, it was a time of celebration. And she was celebrating that her loved ones and she wouldn't have to go through the loss of complete muscle control, to not be able to talk, and to eventually suffocate because her lungs wouldn't be able to pump oxygen. What a blessing. And so we wore these, and the doctor was there, and we gathered around in a circle, and I anointed her with the holy oil of baptism. Gave thanks that years ago her baptism signified that she was born a divine child with a good heart, no tainted heart like Christianity's taught for the last 1,000 years, no half-formed sinful heart, no, a good loving heart. And we celebrated that in her life, as a child to her parents, as a wife, as a mother, as a church member, a community leader, she lived so well as a child of God. And so we anointed her with that oil, and we said the 23rd Psalm, and we prayed together, and then we played that song, It's a Wonderful World, and the doctor injected her, and she slipped into eternity, and I did a benediction. And there was a strong sense of love there, because we die as we live. And you want a good life. It's simple. Not easy, but it's simple. Kindness, respectness, fairness. Because the heart of living is our hearts. The heart of every matter is the matter of the heart. And as Paul was dying in his Roman prison, he wrote these words: all things, the good, bad, and the ugly, all things work together for good, because we are called by God, and when we live according to God's law of love, it all works out. Thanks be to God. We come to our prayer time. An image came to me this week for prayer time. I was walking down the street, and there was a dad with his 2 or 3 year old, and she was all tuckered out. And she was just, he had his arms around her, and she had her arms around his neck, and she just had collapsed into his love. And it reminded me of Jackson. He's ADD, and so he fought sleep. And the half hour before he went to sleep, he'd just be miserable and crying and cantankerous, but they'd reach that magic moment where he'd collapse into his mother's arms, and she'd just hold him and take him to bed as his sobs and whimpers went away as he collapsed into her love. For me, prayer is a time to collapse into the eternal arms of love. I, as you, generally do my best. I try to do my best. And it's such a comfort when at a time like this or a quiet moment at home, I can just collapse into the arms of love. And know that whatever my best lacks, whatever my mistakes, it's all right. Because I'm a part of a great eternal grid of life and love that stretches across the universe. And so I invite you to collapse today into that love, into that mystery. Oh, I love that word mystery, because this is not something we can define. We delude ourselves thinking we can define it. But oh, we can experience it. The source that we're a part of. And so Amanda's going to sing that song, Let Your Arms Enfold Us.
troubled mind. The day has vanished and left us behind. And the wind whispering soft lullabies will soothe, so close your weary eyes. Let your arms enfold us through the dark of night. Will your angels hold us till we see the light? Sleep, angels will watch over you, and soon beautiful dreams will come true. Can you feel spirits embracing your soul? So dream while secrets of darkness unfold. Let your arms enfold us through the dark of night. Will your angels hold us till we see the light? Let your arms enfold us through the dark of night. Will your angels hold us till we see the light?
Spirit, we rest in you. We do our labors, we do our best, but we realize in this big world, it's our connection to other people of goodwill, it's our connection to your love and strength and the values you've placed in our hearts that make up the difference. Help us to find that faith, to risk the things we hope for in this world, because we know that nothing's lost in this universe. That everything we do for love, everything lives on forever, a part of your evolving world of goodness. And so help us to find comfort. Help us to teach our children and grandchildren to find comfort in that promise of doing their best and being about the tasks of love, and that everything will work out. And so we give thanks for this promise, for our experience of its truth, and our anticipation of blessings to come. Amen. So we're going to finish with a good old rocker from the 60s. Put your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the water. And the energy of that man is still with us. And we as Christians get to be his body in the world today. And so we stand and sing together. I better check.
the holy book, I want to tremble at the part when the carpenter cleared the temple. Cause the buyers and the sellers were no different fellas than what I profess to be. And it causes me pain to know I'm not the guy I should be. Put your hand in the hand of the man, still the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself, you can look at others differently. But put your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee. Mama taught me how to pray before I reached the age of 7. And when I'm down on my knees, that's when I'm closest to heaven. Daddy lived his life with 2 kids and a wife. You do what you must do, but he showed me enough of what it takes to get you through. So put your hand in the hand of the man, still the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself, you can look at others differently. But putting your hand in the hand of the man from Galilee.
So as we move into another week, let us remember that the heart of the matter is the heart itself. And let us take with us on this journey the blessing of the source of it all, that mystery we call God, Jesus Christ, love and life revealed in human form, and the Holy Spirit, that same power in us, this day and every day of our lives, world without end. Amen. Joy be in thy heart, peace be in thy spirit, compassion be thy journey, love be in thee, joy be in